Hi there, I'm Paul and thank you for watching another of my PowerApps videos. In this video I want to talk about using SQL Server Views in your PowerApps, because the big news this month, it's February 2018, is that you can now use your SQL Server Views in your PowerApps. Yay! Which is huge news as far as I'm concerned. It really brings PowerApps up several rungs of the ladder in terms of being a really powerful, flexible solution. And as well as making things possible that weren't possible before, things that were possible you can do much more quickly and much more easily. Now, although this is very exciting news, we ought to get out of the way the fact that there are still some limitations. So the first limitation is that if your SQL view is updatable, you won't be able to update it through PowerApps. So PowerApps does not support updatable views. You can't bind your view to the form control and then actually make changes to the data in that view, even if that view is an updatable SQL view. So that's the first limitation. And then the next limitation is that you still can't use stored procedures. There is a workaround for stored procedures using Flow, but it's not built into PowerApps yet. I believe those things are still on the roadmap, still things being worked on by the PowerApps team, so hopefully those will come along in time. But as I say, the ability to use views is still going to make a big difference if you're using SQL Server as your SQL DB as your backend. So what I'm going to do quickly is I'm going to show you some things that I really struggled with because I didn't have views available to me, and then show how much simpler things are now that, as I say, views can be used. So what I'll do for this is I'm going to have a look at some of the applications that I created for managing a restaurant. And time allowing, I'll have a look at a few different examples where I had to implement various sort of workarounds, or I wasn't entirely happy with the solution that I came up with, and how much easier and better it is with the views. So the first one of these I'm going to have a look at is the app for taking the customer's orders. So this is the app that you can see on the screen at the moment. So the screen that we've got here is the initial gallery that we see. It's got test data in it at the moment, but this would be a customer name or table number, whichever way the restaurant wants to do this. The time that the person sat down and we started taking the orders, and then how much they have paid. And when we jump to go through to the next screen, what we see on the next screen, we've got a summary of the information here at the top, and we've then got the actual order detail down at the bottom. So we've got the menu item that they've ordered, the quantity, and then that figures out what the price is going to be. So what I wanted to have on this front screen was not just the amount the customer has paid, but also what is the total for the order. Or we could actually show the total for the order less what the customer has paid so far, just to see the outstanding part of the bill. Oopsie daisy. Sorry about that, it just wanted me to authenticate again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and put that in here at the moment and show you the difficulties of doing that. And just so you can follow along what I'm doing properly, I'll just show you the data structure. So we've got the order header, that's what's showing on that main gallery at the moment, and there's another table which is the order detail table. So the order detail table has a reference back to the order header ID, so I know that this order belongs to, this order detail belongs to this order header, so I can have multiple order details. And the order detail is just, okay, what menu item have they selected, what's the order detail quantity, so the menu item might be burger, the quantity is they've ordered 3 burgers, and then I'm actually storing the order line total in here, so that's calculating from the menu table. It knows what the price is, can multiply it by the quantity, and so we've got the order line total. So I'm actually storing the order line total in here, which makes things a little bit simpler, because I don't have to go out to the menu item to find out what the menu item cost. Okay, so let's see if we can add this. Oopsie, didn't want to do that just then. I want to select something in my gallery first of all, so I'm going to add a label in here, and we're now going to try and total up the individual order lines. So to save you some time just watching me type, I'm going to copy paste the formula in here, and then we'll talk through it. So I've got a formula here, so let's sort of work from the inside part of it outwards. So I'm referencing the order detail table, and I'm doing a filter on the order detail table, and I'm saying, right, give me all of the order details where the order header ID matches this item order header ID. So this item order header ID is going to be different for each row, for each header in my gallery. So I'm bringing back the order details for the specific order header, and then I'm just doing a sum of the order line total. Okay, and we can see I have indeed got my answer here, but, and it's a big but, let's just put it into the play mode and do a refresh. Okay, it is slow, so it's refreshing now. So we've got to wait, and it's flashed, but it still hasn't finished calculating, because look, it's still showing 300 for all of these. So it had refreshed all of the order headers, but now what it's doing is it's going and working out, going and pulling all of these order details, and then summing up the line total, and there it are. It's now finished. So I didn't time that, but I'm guessing it's something like 20 seconds, which is unacceptable for an application like this, where you're in front of the customer and you're trying to quickly fill in details. So it's very slow, which is a pain. Sorry, stay on here for a second. So it's very slow, and that's just trying to do the basics, because really what we should be doing, we can apply a discount at the order header level. So the order header has a discount ID, and the discount ID goes and looks up a discount percentage. So we ought to be applying that discount percentage to our total that we've got showing in this label. But that means that we've got to go through to another table again and pull information from that table to find out, well, what is the percent discount for this particular order header. And we can do that, but it's going to make things even slower still, so I'm not going to bother going down that rabbit hole any further. Once we've got this far, we can see, okay, you know, this is a trade-off. This is too slow, and it's not 100% essential. We're just going to tell the users that, okay, if you want to check how much the order was, then you're going to have to click on the button, and then we can come in here and it can do the calculation for the relevant item. So if I click on a different item, we'll see here that it takes a second or two for it to calculate. But that second or two calculation is being multiplied for every single row when we try and do it on this part of the gallery itself. Okay, so enough waffle there. Let's jump through to another copy of this application, but in this copy of the application, rather than this gallery being based on the order header table, I've actually based it on a view, the order summary view. And that view is in the background doing all of the calculations that I need, so that the information is immediately available. There's no additional calculating that I've got to do in this gallery. So let's just have a little look at that view. So, okay, here's the view that I actually used in the end. So it uses the order header, that's ord H, and the order discount table and the order detail table. So I can do the calculation to get my order total very, very easily if I'm familiar with SQL. And you could build this query in the graphical query builder if you prefer to use that rather than handwriting things out. I've been doing SQL a long time now, so I tend to type things out. So I created a query here, and what I actually did was I tried a few different queries to try and work out which method was going to be the quickest, and this shows us some of the additional facilities that we've got in a big boy toy like SQL Server, where we can do things like, once it finishes freezing, don't know why it's frozen. Okay, so we got there. What I wanted to show was we can show the execution plan of our different query methods and work out which one uses fewer resources, which one is going to be quicker. So that's the sort of thing where in PowerApps, if you're trying different variations of a formula, you don't have any tool in there to tell you which one is faster. You've got to sit there with your stopwatch and try and work it out. With a tool like SQL Server, we get some really powerful tools to help us make sure that our queries are going to run really quickly and really efficiently. So anyway, I created that as a view. So I called the view order summary. We can see what it outputs here. We get the order header ID, the header date, the time, how much we've paid, order header name. Here we go. And the order total. So that's all looking great, and I've just noticed on here as well that we're returning the order discount ID. We don't need to return the order discount ID. So what we can easily do on here is we can just quickly take that out of our view. We don't need that anymore, so I'm going to remove that and just update my view. That's great. Because the more data that we pull down, the more network traffic there is, and the slower things are going to be. We want to try and make sure that our PowerApps are running really quickly. So the other nice thing with a view is that if you only need a few columns from a table, even if you're not doing anything else, fancy joining it to anything else, you can make sure that you're just pulling down the columns that you really need to display. Okay, so we have connected this to order summary. So in terms of doing that, all you've got to do is go to your data sources. You can see there that I've already added my order summary. I better give that a quick refresh now that I've removed the order discount column. But adding your view is exactly the same as adding a table. You just go into your add data source and you choose your SQL Server, you choose default, and then your views, here it is, order summary. Your views will appear down here just the same way that your tables do. So that's all very straightforward. So now all I need to do to put that label in is make sure I've selected the gallery here. Just position this so that we can see it, and then all I've got to do is say it's this item dot, and try and remember what I called the column, order total. There we go, and boom, see how quick that is coming in with the data? So it's not having to recalculate for each row anymore. The data is all being prepared in SQL Server. It's shooting down the network super quick because we've got rid of all of the superfluous columns as well, and now that's really quick to give us our data there. So we'll hit the button on here to refresh it, and wow, quick as that. So a second or two rather than 20 plus seconds, and that was before we'd even tried to mess around pulling in the discount stuff as well. So that's the first one that I wanted to show you then. So in this example, it was one where it was a trade-off where we just had to say, look, the performance hit is too great, or the development time to try and overcome that performance hit is going to be bigger than the benefit of putting this feature in is worth. So we might have been able to get around this without SQL Server. We could have done things like caching the data, but it's a lot more work. So very easy once we've got SQL Server available. Okay, so let's have a look at the next little demonstration I wanted to show you. Okay, so this application is one that shows the kitchen staff the orders that they need to work on, and then they can just tick these to say that they've started working on that order, and then they can get on with working with the next. So this is coming from the same database. So here we are. So this is basically looking at the order header, seeing what details are in the order, seeing what the menu item is, and then checking whether that menu item is something which is prepared in the kitchen by looking at the menu category. So menu category is things like drinks, pizzas, burgers, and so on, and so we mark which category is prepared in the kitchen. So again, we've got a fairly complicated, in terms of PowerApps, not in terms of databases, but a fairly sort of complicated setup in terms of having to look at multiple tables and filter by things that are in the related tables. So let's have a look at how we did that. So this is the version of it I want to have a look at right now. So let's come out of here, and all the magic happens on this refresh button, and you can see that we've got quite a lot of work going on here. So don't worry too much about these sets. Normally these would be setting to today's date. I've just put in an absolute value here for the moment for the purposes of the demonstration. But what we're having to do is we're having to refresh our order and our order detail table. That all takes time. Our other tables, so our menu item and our menu category tables, those we cache when we open the application up, because they're not things that change very often. So we're trying to cut down on that amount of network traffic going backwards and forwards, and only refreshing the tables that may have changed since the last refresh. But we're then having to do a whole load of work, as you can see, with these clear collects. So we're having to drop columns out that we don't want to use to try and save a bit of effort. We're having to apply filters, and then once we've got that, then we're having to do work on the order header one, and then we've got another clear collect where we're using add columns to kind of try and join these tables together and pull out the information that we need. And then down here we've got another filter going on where we need to do a lookup to try and get the is this prepared in the kitchen. So this wasn't a trivial thing to put together. It took some time to figure all this out and put it together. But now, with the magic of views, all that is completely unnecessary, because we can replace all of this hard work that we're doing in PowerApps with a view. So where did I pop it? Here we are. So this is the view that I created in SQL Server, and what we can do if we jump to my copy of it, which is connected to the SQL view, is if we have a look now under that refresh, all that horrible stuff we were doing before all goes away. We don't need to do all of that. We are doing a group by here because we've got a nested gallery, so we have got one clear collect, and then we're using the group by, but that is way simpler because nearly all the work is being done in this kitchen order to prepare view, which is taking place in SQL Server. So SQL Server again is doing all the heavy lifting. It's good at that. It's working out just the information that we need and sending only that information down to us. So in the other version we were having to bring down lots of information from lots of tables each time we were doing the refresh, and then do all kinds of data gymnastics inside PowerApps itself. Way simpler now that we've got these SQL views. Okay, so I'll pause for a second while we just set up another quick demo, last one. Okay, so the last one I'm going to show you then. This is a part of the application which is to manage stock and stock control. And a quick overview, what we have here is we have a series of stock items, and then we have a sort of a stock checking table that says, okay, for this stock item on this date, this was the quantity that you had. We've got a goods in table which says, okay, for this stock item on this date, this is the quantity of stock that was added. And then what we also have is kind of a bill of materials here that says, okay, for this particular stock item, it's used when we prepare this particular menu item, and the amount of it we use is this quantity. So this all gets a little bit involved, but I'll try and explain the logic to you, which is what we want to do to figure out how much we currently have in stock of a particular item. We want to check or look back in this inventory table to say, right, when was the last time we did a proper stock check? So let's say we did a proper stock check on Monday and we had 10 in stock, and then on Tuesday we had a delivery of another 5, so we should have 15. But let's say this is burger buns. We sold, since Monday, we've sold 10 burger buns. So, 10 burgers, and each burger uses a burger bun. So we need to take 10 off that 15, so now we've only got 5 left. So you can see there's a bit of complicated logic in there to sort of say, right, this is our starting point. How much have we added since then? How much have we used since then? What have we got at the moment? And of course, for every single item that we've got, every single stock item, then potentially they've all got different stock check dates. So you've got to do this on kind of an item by item basis. So we've already seen how in PowerApps even some fairly simple logic can be quite difficult to implement when we're having to pull all those base tables in and then perform all of our querying and data manipulation directly inside PowerApps. So my solution for this one was not even to attempt to do it in PowerApps. So I have got a PowerApp application which shows us how much we've currently got in stock of each item, and it gives us a chance to add more stock and to confirm the amount of stock that we currently have. Okay, so those go into the tables that we were looking at here, the stock inventory and the goods in table. And the way that we work out how much we currently have available to us is a bit of a cheat. So what I'm doing to work that out is I've got a view in my Azure SQL DB database. Here it is, the estimated remaining stock, and that's calculating out the stock for me, and it's doing all of those checks to say, oh, okay, when was the last time we did an inventory? Okay, start with that amount of stock and then look through those other tables, but only for the dates since we did the inventory to work out what we need to add and what we need to remove from that stock number. And so that's all done with a view, which of course until this month we couldn't use in our Power App. So the little trick that we were using to get around that was to have a stored procedure. The stored procedure takes the value that we have calculated. So let's just run this here. Oopsie. Sorry, I want to actually run the view. There we are. So this works out that, okay, for this stock item, this is our estimated current stock. And then it takes that value and it actually punches it into the stock item table, the estimated current stock here. So when we run the stored procedure, we're taking the value and we're actually writing the value to the table, and then in our Power App we're just displaying the value from the table. Now of course that value is only as accurate as the last time that we ran that stored procedure. So what we have to do is we have to say, okay, look, when we're making changes to things, like when we're changing this stock level, or when we are doing a delivery, then what we need to do is on the forms success, here we are, on the form success action, what we need to do is we need to actually run that stored procedure, and the way we do that is by creating a flow which calls the stored procedure and then attaching that into the Power App. So I'm not going to go through all those steps because fortunately you don't need them anymore, but you can see how convoluted all this sort of thing was to do, whereas now all I'm going to need to do when I update this application is to base this gallery on my view, and the job is done. I don't have to mess around with any of this triggering stored procedure nonsense via flow, which is so much messing around. Okay, so that takes us up to about half an hour, so I want to keep this one a little bit shorter. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Good news, views are available in SQL Server, and hopefully what I've managed to achieve in this session is to show you how valuable that is, how things that previously were a real headache to do in PowerApps are now much easier, and that we have so much more flexibility when we can move all of this data processing over to our back end. It makes the development quicker, you know, particularly if you have a background in SQL Server like I have. It's much quicker to write those SQL Server queries than it is to try and do all this data manipulation in PowerApps. So it's quicker development. We've got better tools for the development because, as we saw briefly, we can analyze our queries and we can try and make them as efficient as possible. You know, we can create indexes to back them up. We can do all sorts of smart, clever things. So quicker from a development perspective, much quicker from an application perspective, because we don't have to bring all that data into PowerApps. So that would be a lot of network traffic to bring more data down to then perform those data manipulations within PowerApps itself. So we can only send the information that we need to send. And that includes not just only sending the rows that we're interested in, we only have to send the columns that we're interested in as well. So again, that's reducing the amount of unnecessary network traffic, which is going to slow things down as well. So I'm very excited. I hope you're excited as well. SQL Server Views finally here. and we should be able to make some much nicer, much faster, much better Power Apps as a result. Okay, I'll say goodbye for now.